Hey everybody, welcome to Test Tube Plus. I'm Trace. Thank you for watching. In this show, we explore big science topics, and this week, it's senses. We do this all week, and today, we're talking about what senses you could have in the future. Some people have them already, but you might be able to get them soon. The number of senses that we've listed so far is not actually a number. It's unlimited. If we're defining a sense as just consistent input that your brain can process, the sky is the limit on that. We can add any number of new processes that the brain, because it's plastic, will be able to take care of. In a sense, pun, we can augment our existing senses in novel ways. So, similar to how we know things are wet even though we have no water receptors, we could use the brain's plastic ability to do anything. David Eagleman is wearing something called a sense vest. He's basically created a computerized vest that takes data from the internet and turns it into a series of vibrations that happen in various parts of this thing that he wears. After he wore it for enough time and understood what those vibrations were doing, he doesn't necessarily feel them anymore. Similar to how when your phone rings in your pocket, sometimes you just don't know it's there. You've had it near your body too long. It's gotten used to it. You may intuit that your phone is ringing and then pull it out and realize it without actually feeling it ring. But in this case, they fed live weather data into the vest. And so David Eagleman eventually could tell what the weather was going to be from that input without thinking, oh, my left pocket on my vest is vibrating. That means there's going to be rain. Instead, he just kind of knew it's going to rain in 20 minutes. This is how the brain can suck up information and how good it is at this, which is kind of scary. It's so good that people who are missing senses, like people who are born blind or even who become blind, can learn to echolocate. Children who are born blind tend to learn to click. And they take that sound information and it bounces off the room around them and comes back to their ears. The difference in the space of their ears allows them to determine the angles of the walls, what is in the room, if there are soft surfaces or hard surfaces. This is how bats get around at night. It's a myth that bats can't see. They actually can see, but they're using the sonar information because it's so precise. They can bounce sound off of the environment, and they're getting spatial data. Interestingly, most children who natively and intuitively learn to click are actually discouraged from doing so because it's kind of weird to have a person wandering around your house or your work clicking. But what happens is, if people learn how to do this, like a guy, Daniel Kish, you can do so much with it. He rides his bike. He rides it around, outside, in public, along with people walking, with cars, with trees. He can ride and click at the same time. He obviously has to click faster while riding than he does while walking, but he doesn't use a cane when walking because he just clicks and then uses that sound information. And it's not just hearing. The brain has wired into the visual cortex as well, and the visual centers of his brain fires when he clicks, meaning his brain has taught itself to see without using his eyeballs. There are other things that we can do to augment senses, like with prosthetics. The MIT last year came up with a pressure-sensitive prosthetic, which, as you now know, is only one of many senses that we use to grab onto things, but it does help give feedback when you're gripping something. You don't want to grab something too hard, like an egg or a paper cup, because you could break it, you could spill stuff, you could cause all sorts of issues. This new prosthetic senses how much grip it's giving and gives that information back to the person wearing it. How they do that is incredible. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency created an interface that actually works with current and existing nerve cells. So if you have an arm that had to be amputated for whatever reason, you still have nerve cells at the end of that arm. This uses what looks kind of like a wagon wheel or a hub, and it wraps around the nerve. It's a piece of metal, and it has little openings where the spokes of like the wagon wheel would be, so the nerve can grow around the device. That, with a little bit of electrical stimulation, allows signals to be sent to the brain. The brain learns to pick those up, and it can touch things, it can sense pressure. It's pretty much incredible. They call it the Luke arm after Luke Skywalker, and he had a little hand after he yelled at his dad in the next scene. It was pretty crazy. But speaking of that, altering your body, it's not just for people who've been in accidents or who have had military service. There is also a community of body modification people. Body mods are very popular when it comes to adding senses. The vest is like an external body modification, the David Eagleman's vest. But the internal body modifications are really interesting. For example, you could embed a rare earth magnet in your fingertip. That rare earth magnet allows you not only to sense electromagnetic fields like where north is, maybe, but when they get near electrical devices, which create electromagnetic flux, they vibrate ever so slightly, and the person with the magnet in their finger can use that to sense power cord transformers, microwaves. They can feel laptop fans and how fast they're moving. They can interact with the universe around them in such a different way than if you don't have that electromagnetic field sense. There are also things like the sensor suit, which is similar to the body modification of David Eagleman's vest. It uses ultrasonic pulses to detect stimuli that are 60 feet away, and then it will provide skin pressure depending on how close those objects are. So if you program it to maybe sense Wi-Fi networks that are open, you could be walking down the street and intuit that 60 feet away to your right and in front of you is an open Wi-Fi network, which sometimes can be very useful when data gets slow. Neil Harbison is colorblind. So he created a camera that he attached to his head. He is actually a registered cyborg. Neil Harbison's camera looks at what he's looking at and senses what color it is, because Neil can't see it. Then it creates a set of musical notes, and those hues of color are converted to those tones and sent into his body using bone conduction. So no one else hears them, and he doesn't have to wear headphones. It just kind of vibrates ever so slightly, and he can hear it. So when he looks at a painting, he can see a variety of different hues or feel a variety of different hues. There are also mobile technological advances, things like these prosthetics, things like Neil Harbison's cyborgian implant that allows him to kind of hear color. These things are all based on advancing mobile technology. Things we take for granted every day that are in our pocket can do a lot of stuff. My phone broke a while ago, and rather than go to get a new one right away, I used my computer, plugged it in, it's an iPhone, and I turned on what's called, I think, voiceover mode. This is the mode for people who cannot see to use their iPhones. If you ever are feeling like you want to do a self-experiment, go try it. You will learn so much more about, one, how you can interact with your phone, but two, looking at the world around you. It became so that I couldn't see the screen for weeks, but it didn't matter. I could still use my phone, I could check Twitter, I could send texts, I could receive and make calls, because it's built for people who can't see the screen. And it's incredible, really, try it. I ended up looking around while I was walking and texting at the same time, and I never missed a beat because I didn't have to. There are also things like a magnetic belt. Simple, it's just a compass belt, and it vibrates to tell people where north is. And I think this is a great place to kind of wind it down, because this belt was given to people who wore it for weeks at a time. And when they took this magnetic belt off, that all it did was tell them which way north was, they said the people got anxious, they felt lost, and they got claustrophobic, which is the closest that you can get to losing a sense, because they got so used to this information that they became better at navigating their world, and when you took it away, they didn't know what to do. Because once the brain gets used to information, it's really tough to take it away. Man, I think that's it. There's not much else to talk about senses. It turns out, thanks to this, we now know our brain can pretty much do anything. And hopefully, whenever anybody says, these are the 5 senses, you tell them the truth, or, just point them to our episodes. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We hope you enjoyed this week of episodes. If you're just tuning in for the first time to this one, go back and watch the other episodes. We've been talking about census for the last few days. Or if you want to see next week's, again, make sure you subscribe. And thank you for watching.